Recording. Thank you again, Jhampa, for wanting to come back to Laksam. It's been more than 2 years since you were here the last time, and that was just prior to our most kind and dear Lama Zopa Rinpoche entering the aspect of passing away, and then we had to cancel a few events on Mahamudra, but now you're back here, and with a very busy schedule and sitting in Mexico City, you've offered us the kindness to be here with us. And a short intro would be that you've been immersed into Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, since the early 70s, having been ordained and disrobed, and still completely contributing to the Tibetan community and Dharma and helping out in whatever capacity you have, and now sharing your knowledge about Mahamudra with us, also the next Thursday. And then in 3 weeks, we will have you here for our Vajrasattva Guru Yoga introduction. And let's see where it takes us. And thank you everybody for joining in. And I will share in the chat a few texts if you didn't get them by mail. And with that said, I will happily hand over the word to you, Jhampa.
Thank you. Okay, good. So anyway, the first to just say, I always check up our motivation. And actually the worst thing is that for those of us that have been involved in Buddhism for 15 or 20 or 30 years, we often sort of say, oh yeah, I'm a bodhisattva, but we don't really actually connect or collect the karma powerfully. So I'd like you to bring to mind first just someone that you love. Whether your mother, father, brother, sister, partner, even your pet, okay? So bring them to mind, and it's, when you bring them to mind, I mean, it comes with that, then, oh, I love that person, or I love my pet. And then when the feeling of love has arisen, then say, I'm attending the teachings of Mahamudra to offer them a better relationship. Now, within that, we're taking care of ourselves because we're attending the teachings, but we put it in a context where it's definitely sort of for a little bit more than ourselves. And although that isn't, you could call supreme bodhicitta for the benefit of all sentient beings, we're moving in the right direction. And we are actually accumulating the karma of some love with the motivation because we brought to mind someone that we did love. And actually, I've had recently a few emails with people that have said like, oh, Jhampa, like, how can you deal with attachments? Attachment's bad. I'll quote actually the Dalai Lama. And in 2010, when we had the reunion of the what's called the old Dharamsalawalas, those of us that had been in India for, 40 years earlier and had spent a good, to qualify, you had to have spent at least 5 to 10 years living in Dharamsala to be able to attend that meeting. And there was about 200 of us that attended. And that included those of us originals and then the children of us and such. It was a really beautiful meeting. But His Holiness has said of various feelings that we have, attachment actually can be used in the sense that you could say, well, I'm attached to this person and I'd like to offer them a better relationship. And so therefore I'm going to practice the Dharma. And even then you could say I'm attached to the Dharma. But if you do practice the Dharma, then you will, of course, change the way that you feel about the Dharma. And although you might initially be attached to it, like, yes, I want to become enlightened, and yes, I want to meditate, and yes, leave me alone, I need personal space. We'll have those sorts of thoughts. As we practice, we'll go, oh, but actually it's for them that I'm doing my meditation. And so therefore we will diminish the negative side of attachment and then end up with just the idea of good love, which is may they have happiness, the cause of happiness. Okay, now the Mahamudra teachings. I actually originally received this from Kabji Ling Rinpoche, and actually it's been 53 years that I've been, 54 years now, actually, since I got involved in Buddhism. I met Lama Tutu Nyeshe in January of 1971, and I was so just enthralled with him. He was such an incredibly charismatic and wise person, and so I then said, I'd like to be your student, and he says, come to Nepal with me, and From there, then I ended up getting ordained, and actually in Dharamsala in India, etc. So anyway, an interesting practice. Now, Lama Yeshe said something, and I'll quote from him quite a bit because he was really, although I didn't get to spend a lot of time with his teachings, because he ended up traveling the world and things, and I ended up living just in Dharamsala. Though what happened is that when I did meet him, he'd often sort of give me some really quite nice teachings. It was sort of like a pith instruction, you would almost say, just because, I've been around a long time. And so he knew me, and I knew that I was practicing hard. So he said that wisdom is actually what makes you cool. Now, that sounds a bit quaint, but it means like fresh or cool, or then let's say use the contrast is not hot. And so therefore, what is hot? Well, hot is anger and jealousy and competitiveness and possessiveness and things like that. Those are hot delusions. And so wisdom makes you cool. And I want to focus on that as we go towards Mahamudra, because Mahamudra doesn't negate the graduated path. And you might say, well, of course it doesn't, but no, the wisdoms within the graduated path are completely the foundation of a Mahamudra state of consciousness. Okay. And so what you want to bring to mind is, okay, well, my hot delusions, like my anger, my jealousy, my competitiveness, like they bother me, they heat me up, they make me upset. So what would be that is cool? Well, let's just take the graduated path. First, things are always changing. And it is interesting to sort of phrase it. I've talked before, I think, with you guys to say that there are some problems with sometimes the translation of the words from Tibetan. I mean, the big one, of course, renunciation is not the Tibetan word nejung. Nejung is spiritual determination or moving forward. Renunciation is looking backwards. I renounced cigarettes, I renounced alcohol. You're looking backwards, where the actual nejung is, from this position, I'm going to move forward to a more spiritual life, whatever, becoming more enlightened. So it's actually the understanding of the words, and the words properly as within the Buddha's context, is really actually important. Now, although we use the word impermanence, which is quite midakpa, which is the Tibetan word impermanence, another word that maybe a little better for us in regards to a different effect on consciousness is change. Things are always changing. Okay. And again, that's just a dialectics with the words. But if you have that mind or that understanding, that wisdom, it will keep you cool in the sense that you're in a difficult situation, someone's angry, and well, this will change. You stay calm. One Tibetan Lama once said, like, if you are traveling and you arrive in a hotel and it's noisy and it's maybe not quite the way you like it, well, you don't get that angry because you only have to stay there for one night and then you're going to move. So it's okay. I accept it. So you practice patience because you say, well, it's only for one night. It's not going to be sort of overwhelming. I don't have to be there for the next year with this problem. So you see what I mean? Like the fact that things will change, it keeps you cool. And so that's really important to understand that, okay, in a meeting situations, this situation will change, or this situation is impermanent, keeps me cool, keeps me calm. Then if the second one of wisdoms, again, coming straight out of the graduated path, is that things are, if something's happening, there's a cause and circumstance. So often, when something's happening, you say, well, why me? What's going on here? I don't like this. Why did that happen? Why did you steal? Why did you lie to me? This and that. And so no, if something's happening in your life, there's a cause and circumstance. And when you understand that, you stay cool or you stay calm, because you can say, okay, I have some karma with the situation. Another way to phrase it is to say, if in a situation you're reacting, you've got karma there. Okay. Now, if you're reacting, it means I have some causes and circumstances in regards to this situation. But that's sort of like you could say the cup is half empty. The cup is half full is I can make new causes and circumstances. So it's actually quite constructive, the appreciation of karma. So, and again, something's happening, someone's getting angry, something bad's happening. I mean, taxes went up, or I don't know, whatever might bother you. Again, okay, it's not arbitrary. There's some causes and circumstances. Okay, may I create new causes and circumstances? So you stay calm, you stay cool, because your wisdom, your understanding of the situation keeps you calm. So this situation will change. Okay, I can stay calm. This situation has causes and circumstances. I can create new causes and circumstances. I stay calm. Then, as we go a little bit further into the graduated path and the wisdom, and in this case, we're talking about that all phenomena are interdependent. Very often when we talk about karma, it's very linear, like cause, circumstance, effect, and then that effect creates new causes, circumstance, effects, so linear like that. Whereas if you think of it more as sort of homogeneous or whatever, it would be, no, I'm in a universal ocean of interdependence. I'm sitting in this room, or you're sitting wherever you are in Switzerland. Well, you're sitting in a room and you're immersed in the atmosphere of that room, the temperature of that room, the humidity of that room. And it's the evening time for you guys. So therefore, again, I mean, possibly you've had a lunch and you've had dinner, or at least you had maybe a nice cup of tea or coffee or something like that. So you feel contented. So again, you're interdependent with that. So the, let's say, less linear, more, let's say, holistic understanding wisdom is I'm in a interdependent universe. Now, that builds on the two previous. I mean, it's not like arbitrary. Okay, I'm in an interdependent universe because things are always changing. I'm in an interdependent universe because there's a continuity of causes and circumstances for whatever is manifesting. So then you can say, I rest. Okay, so I'm immersed and penetrated in this ocean of atmosphere. So that's my interdependence. I am empty of self-existence. But again, you have to look at the use of the words. I mean, as Nagarjuna said, if you understand interdependence, you understand the void. If you understand the void, you understand interdependence. So it's just a really important thing. Again, so in this interdependent universe, which I'm immersed in it. Like, I mean, I move my hands, it's continually touching the atmosphere around me. I take a breath, it completely penetrates the very cells of my body. In fact, gives me life. I am immersed and penetrated. I am 100% interdependent. That's physically. You can then shift over to your mind. I mean, you're understanding English means that you had someone teaching you. I mean, maybe you were brought up in an English home so that your mom and dad were automatically speaking English, but chances are you were either speaking, Schweizerdeutsch or French or something like that, so the thing is you had that, and then somewhere in there you got a teacher that taught you then English, then you've met the Dharma and you're getting teachings, or, as one of my teachers once said, he said that, if we were so smart, we wouldn't need the Dharma because we would have understood what we're to do with ourselves. But obviously we don't, because we ended up with some suffering, some uncomfort. So we looked for solutions, and then we came across the Dharma. But again, the second facet of I'm interdependent. My mind, my intelligence, my use of words, interdependent with teachers and such. And in my emotional life, again, I mean, it's not like we just sort of suddenly feel love. You have somebody in your life and you feel love. Or I mean, like, when you come home and your pet dog comes running up and wagging its tail, again, so you need something in your life for the feeling of love or joy. For those of us old enough to have grandchildren, when a grandchild comes up and you give them a present and they smile at you, and, you feel so nice, So again, we need interdependence for love, joy. I mean, you could also say you need, interdependence for anger and jealousy and things like that. But that's the negative side. And, we don't want that of so much things. So looking at the positive side of our interdependence in the sense of our feelings. So again, the wisdom is saying, whoa, I'm interdependent. I'm not isolated, independent. I better appreciate the things that support me. I appreciate mom and dad. I appreciate the people that were my teachers. I appreciate the people that I have in my life for love. I appreciate planet Earth for the food it gives me and the water it gives me and the good things, such like that. So your shift of your attitude, it keeps you more in a state closer to reality. So let's rephrase it. Wisdom keeps you cool, keeps you calm. Things are always changing. What's in harmony with reality? If something's happening, it has a continuity of causes and circumstances. That's reality. I'm in a universal ocean of interdependence. That's reality. And those same things keep me comfortable and give me a more constructive perspective about things. All of this, why I wanted to touch on this first was because when we talk about Mahamudra, it's not like we're in a dumb state of consciousness or a blank state of mind. We don't have to be thinking about things, but we can have a state of knowing. And again, if you think about like, what would that mean? Well, let's say if you're looking at a flame of a candle, you know it's hot. Okay, you don't need to say, this is hot. You just know. You appreciate, oh, this is going to be hot. Or let's say your stove, when it's cooking something, you know it's hot, or a fire. Okay, so this thing, a state of knowing doesn't need to be mentally articulated, but it can understand. So if you become more familiar, which is actually the word for meditation is the familiarity, that you become familiar with, things are always changing. If something's happening, it's got causes and circumstances, and I can create new causes and circumstances. Oh, it's not all linear. I'm in an interdependent universe. I'm not only immersed, I'm penetrated. I am 100% empty of any self-existence. Every cell of my body needs to communicate and participate. Okay, and then you can say we arrive at then the openness of the reality and such like that. The thing. Now, I'm teaching things just a little differently than maybe a traditional presentation, but hey, I only got 2 classes with you guys, so I have that option that I can do that. And secondly, I've got 50 years worth of practice under my belt, so I'm not making anything new. I'm taking the existing and giving it a little bit different perspective because of our culture and the difference of who we are. So on that basis, I like to talk about relative perspective and ultimate perspective. So relative perspective, okay, I'm perceiving things, and the relative side is I'm in an ocean of interdependence. If something's happening, it's got causes and circumstances, things are always changing. Totally reality, a reality reflection off of how I'm perceiving things. Okay. If we talk about ultimate perspective isn't looking at the individual phenomena, but rather the nature of all of those phenomena. So when you talk about, the phenomena, so like, for example, I'm in a room, I look at the wall in front of me, it's interdependent. I look at the lamp that's up in front of me, it's interdependent. I look at my computer screen, it's interdependent. Look at my hands, they're interdependent. So when you look at the ultimate perspective, you are perceiving the nature that is found in all of those objects. And this nature is equal. It's not that the wall is a little bit more interdependent than the lamp, or that my hands are a little bit more interdependent than the desk or something. No, it is the same. It is called what we call the equanimity of all the phenomena. They are all equally empty of any independent self-existence. So ultimate perspective then doesn't focus on individual phenomena, but rather it is the nature of, you could say, any one phenomena, which is equally in all the other phenomena. So therefore, no one phenomena can stand a little higher than any of the other phenomena. So therefore, everything evaporates. Everything becomes, well, let's say, no longer can appear, because your mind is looking at the nature of phenomena, not the individual facet of a phenomena. And any individual facet you might pick, it's interdependent, open, created by causes and circumstances, always changing. Okay, so you don't have any disharmony with the perception, but all you're doing is you're saying, okay, and even Geshe Ngawan Darge said, if you understand the voidness of one phenomena, you've understood the voidness of all phenomena. So just phrasing that a little differently to say, on ultimate perspective, you want to have the understanding is that I can't touch anywhere where something is a little bit more than something else, because I'm touching the nature of all of these phenomena, and that is interdependence, and so therefore all these phenomena are empty of any independence. They are all interdependent. So all phenomena, you could say, evaporate, dissolve into, or open up, and we arrive at a state of consciousness, and this is like open like the space of the sky. So that's to talk about Mahamudra coming from a wisdom understanding, because Mahamudra is, although it's called the great movement or the great symbol, it has a wisdom foundation. We often talk about, the Madhyamika, you say the great perspective. Anyway, coming back to that, then, if we move over here, and I'll just sort of bring up my little screen here, we have the 3 verses coming from the Lama Chopa. Okay, no, sorry, I just want to make my screen a little bit bigger. Okay, here we go. There we go. So if you're familiar with Lama Chopa, called Guru Puja, you have then, this, I think 5 branches of, invoking, making offerings, making requests, 1 pointed requests, and then you have the receiving of the graduated path blessings. And in that, then, if you move up, I can't remember the number of the verse, but in there you arrive at the 3 verses with the perfection of wisdom. So in the Lama Chopa, you go through the graduated path and then bodhicitta, and then you arrive at each of one verse for each of the 6 perfections: generosity, ethics, patience, enthusiasm, meditation, and then wisdom. So we seek your blessings to complete the perfection of wisdom through the space-like yoga of the single-minded placement on the ultimate truth, conjoined with the ecstasy and great bliss induced by the discriminating wisdom of analyzing suchness. Okay, now that's a lot of information in a few words. Okay, so complete the perfection of wisdom. So that means the space-like yoga. Now, the space-like yoga, it refers to like open like the space of the sky, which I'll describe in a few minutes. But okay, that's it. Single-minded placement. So the ultimate truth. So phrase it this way, that the perspective is, I'm looking at the ultimate nature of phenomena. I'm not looking at the relative nature, which is the various aspects of any one phenomena. I'm looking at their nature. Their nature is pervasive equally for all phenomena. No phenomenon is self-existent. And so therefore, I rest that. And then it says, I rest with the ecstasy and great bliss induced by the discriminating wisdom analyzing suchness. Okay. It does require, there's 2 commentaries on when someone starts to get closer to understanding reality. One is fear, and the other one is joy. So let's come back to the one of, I'm in a universal ocean of interdependence. Oh my God, I'm vulnerable. That's the fear side of understanding the voidness. And it's said that happens because of a lack of positive feelings, a lack of good energy. That suddenly, I'm naked before the universe. I'm vulnerable. I can be affected because I'm interdependent. The next breath I'm going to take is going to be full of germs, and I could get ill. I mean, very paranoid sort of way of thinking about things. But I'm sorry, that's reality. But that feeling came from a lack of positive energy, lack of positive feelings. You say good karma, whatever. Okay, so that's why we have a foundation in our practice. Whether you're going to do prostrations or purification, guru yoga, mandala offerings would be the 4 preliminaries, or just you've basically been, practicing well. You have mindfulness, you have a stability of mind, you have good self-esteem, things like that. And so then you say, wow, I'm interdependent, and that's like, this way then, well, thank you to my teachers, and thank you to mom and dad, and thank you to the planet Earth, and thank you to the people in my life where I feel love. I'm interdependent. Wow. And then comes within that almost automatically like, oh, I'd like to be of benefit. I am interdependent. May I be some benefit to these things around me? So that's where the ecstasy and great bliss, it does come from a more constructive, positive attitude about understanding reality. Again, so we're talking about, a final a final experience, a final state of consciousness, Mahamudra. So anyway, that verse is quite good to give us that idea. And then I'll just cover the next two verses just to cover them. We seek your blessings to perfect samadhi on illusion by realizing how all external and internal phenomena lack true existence and yet appear like a mirage, a dream, an image of the moon in a clear lake. So that's where all phenomena are like an illusion. So an important word is like an illusion. They are not illusions. They are similar. And so the example that's good for that one is to say, you come into a restaurant and wow, this is a big restaurant. Oh, and there's my friend, Pierre or Michelle sitting over there. Okay. And then suddenly you realize, oh, no, that's a mirrored wall. And, Pierre or Michelle is over here. But at one moment you had this complete conviction, complete projection, like really Pierre Michel is sitting over here. Because why? The causes and circumstances are perfect. The nature of the reflected image and Pierre Michel over here is completely equal. But what you did is when you realized, oh, that's not them, that's a reflection, you, so to speak, you withdrew some goopy substance, which is sort of over-validation or exaggeration. And then you shifted it over to this side because, oh, they're over here at this table and I can sit with them and have a cup of coffee. Okay. But point is that what our mind does is that it takes the mirror image, like in the restaurant, but then it applies it to everything and it thinks this is reality. Whereas it's just Pierre and Michel are created by causes and circumstances. The image in a mirror is created by causes and circumstances. They are interdependent. That's interdependent. This is always changing. That is always changing. So you to look at the world around you, and it is like that you're seeing everything that's been reflected in a mirror. You stop exaggerating it. Anyway, so that's what that verse is about. Is that may I have the understanding that all external and internal phenomena lack true existence, yet appear vividly, like a dream, or like an image in a mirror, or an image of the moon in the lake, or like a person in a restaurant where it's the mirror in the wall. So this is sort of, again, to help you get greater flexibility in your understanding, to see things as that although they appear vividly, they are not self-existent. Then the final verse, again, is all straight from Lama Chupa. There's verses 1, 2, and 3, perfection of wisdom, illusions, and then samsara and sunnah lack even an atom of true existence, while cause and effect and dependent arising are non-fallacious. We seek your blessings to discern the import of Nagarjuna's thought, that these two appear in agreement and are not mutually contradiction. And that's just saying that although phenomena are empty of self-existence, they are still, we don't invalidate causes and circumstances and the continuity and the dependent arising. Okay, so I wanted to touch on those three verses just to say, okay, that's the way that you can appreciate those. Now from there, I'm sorry, I have to pull up the next thing, is we're going to the Ganges Mahamudra. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit, so let me pull up the screen here. Okay, so we're talking about, I want to go into a state of Mahamudra. I would like to be in harmony with reality. I would like to really be able to rest within that understanding, that experience, okay? So in desiring that, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have a wisdom understanding. That's why I talked about the wisdoms of things are always changing. If something's happening, it's got causes and circumstances. It's all interdependent. I like to say, if everything is interdependent, it is open to being influenced and affected, and then empty of any self-existence. It's a very nice progression. Okay, and actually, if you understand everything is empty of self-existence, you understand it's always changing. And if you understand it's empty of self-existence, you understand it was created by causes and circumstances. And if you understand it's empty of self-existence, it's in a grand ocean of interdependence, universal ocean of interdependence. Okay, so the Mahamudra experience is a wisdom consciousness. And it's, it has compassion there, but we'll talk about that later. But for right now, let's just say getting a basis of wisdom gives you a foundation for your compassion. That when you see somebody who's angry, they're just trying to be happy in all the wrong ways. They're creating the karma of anger, thinking that'll solve my problem. But it's not the best way to solve a problem. I mean, it might temporarily solve the problem, but in the long run, no, anger doesn't do it. Anyway, just sort of off topic, but understanding. So the so what we want is a state of experience of Mahamudra, but it is a wisdom consciousness, and it's understanding interdependence is empty of all self-existence. Also empty of all of independent self-existence is interdependence. Okay, so Nagarjuna. Now we're going to bring up the Ganges Mahamudra. Now, this text, of various different texts I received, and this is going back about 20 years. I at one point realized that I came across the Ganges Mahamudra, and I couldn't find a Galupa Lama or Galupa Geshe who had it. Now it is part of the Galupa tradition. It's just that you got to be able to present it, you need to have a transmission of it, the lung. And I couldn't find a Galupa that had it at that moment. But Thangu Rinpoche, who is actually was a close friend of Lama Thupten Yeshe, had it. Okay, he's Kharkiv. Okay, and so I went searching for where he was, and I found that he was actually in Vancouver, and I'm a Canadian, so I was actually in Mexico by then. But I went back up to Canada, and I made an appointment with him, and I received the lung, the transmission of the Ganges Mahamudra from him. Actually, it is available, I think, on YouTube if you wanted to watch it. Now, I'm not going to give you the transmission of the Ganges Mahamudra. I mean, that would be something else. But I want to use it, and I'm just validating that I do have the transmission of receiving this. And although I didn't get it from a Galupa Lama, I got it from a Kargyupa Lama, Sangha Rinpoche, and such. So this is good because it's got a series of examples, which is going to give you an appreciation of Mahamudra, but really appreciating it coming from those wisdoms I spoke of that keep you cool, keep you calm, keep you collected. So Ganges Mahamudra, Homa to Vajradakini. Although Mahamudra cannot be taught, intelligent and patient Naropa, tolerant of suffering, who is engaged in austerity and is devoted to the Guru, fortunate one, do this with your mind. For example, in space, what is resting on what? In one's mind, Mahamudra, there is nothing to be shown. Rest relaxed in the natural state without attempting to alter anything. If this fetter or bondage of thought is loosened, there is no doubt that you will be liberated. Now, the example is that you have to use your imagination. You're at 30,000 feet in the space of the sky. Okay, so that open space, there's not, well, I guess it doesn't work, but it's not like that there's in space. Okay, I know. Let me start over. I blew it. Okay, sort of. What's the definition of space? The definition of space is non-obstruction. So, if this is planet Earth moving through space, it's not like space gets out of the way of planet Earth. Rather, that space is non-obstruction. The planet Earth moves through space. Now, space is actually just a mental designation, but it is something we can cognize that we're moving through space. So space doesn't get out of the way. Space is not a something. So in that understanding, when you talk about space, non-obstruction, it's not that it's sort of that there's above and below for that space. Because there's nothing to refer to that would cause that. So it says, in space, what is resting on what? Okay. The thing is that you're trying to intellectualize it and you can't. It's like saying space gets out of the way of planet Earth. No, space is non-obstruction. And so if you can grasp that a little bit, then space doesn't it's not spaces there's, let's say, rest on something else. Space is just not obstruction. You could say it's openness. So the example of Mahamudra is in your mind, say, don't rest on something. Now, let's shift over back to our analogies. Okay, things are always changing, continuity of causes and circumstances, things are interdependent. Now, the thing that things are interdependent is universal. Now, we're all well educated, something which, for example, the Tibetans, when they were doing their meditations, didn't have this. But I mean, we know of the planet Earth, and then we know of the sun, and we know gravitational forces. I mean, we don't have to know the detail, like, I mean, be an astrophysicist or something. But we generally have the sense of, gravity and gravitational forces, the moon, the tides of the ocean going up and down, And so when you just touch on that, your mind doesn't take a lot of effort to say, oh, all interdependent, okay? But when you start to do that, then you say, okay, but this applies everywhere. There's not some place that I can go that doesn't have interdependence, And so therefore you could say your mind opens up. It works in English. It depends, I don't know if they would have used it, but it says your mind opens up to interdependence is universal, non-obstructive, open like the space of the sky. So you just rest in that. And that's the natural state of the mind. Now, I mean, I hope you got a little bit of a flavor there. I mean, if you got a bit of like, oh, then that's really good. Okay. That's the point of it, is that you have sort of an aha moment of it. But maybe you have to build it up a little bit, build up some of the constructs about it. But the point is that it's saying, okay, space, what is resting on what? In your mind, Mahamudra, there is nothing to be shown. Rest relaxed in the natural state without attempting to alter anything. Okay, so again, you say, okay, well, I need to rest in that, but I need to make sure I'm not doing some sort of resting on something. So we can use our Madhyamika philosophy wisdom to say that, okay, I mean, everything's impermanent. That sort of works out okay. Everything has got a continuity of causes and circumstances. Well, that means it's all interdependent. And that's universal. Like, I mean, whether it's in our solar system and in our Milky Way galaxy or the other one across the way or whatever, all this universal ocean of interdependence. And I let my mind open to that because it's all empty of self-existence. Okay. And then I rest in that. Don't go anywhere with that. So that's the first verse of Mahamudra, which, again, one of the verses might touch you a little bit more than the other ones. Okay. Then we have, for example, it is like looking in the middle of the sky and not seeing anything. In the same way, when your mind looks at the mind, thoughts stop and you attain the unsurpassable awakening. Okay. I want to give you as an example. Okay. So you're looking at your screen right now. Okay. Now, bring your attention back 20, 30 centimeters. Okay. So there's nothing there. I mean, you could call it clear light. Okay. I mean, you might have a colored light bulb in the ceiling or something like that, but basically look at your screen, pull your attention back 30 centimeters, 40 centimeters, whatever it might be. Okay. And that's clear light without form because it wasn't obstructing your view. Okay. So it says, like looking in the middle of the sky and not seeing anything. So again, you need to use examples or something to sort of help you. One thing that in the Tibetan system, what they would do is that they'd go up to a mountain or a cliff where you could sit and you couldn't see anything. Like, you wouldn't look down, obviously, but you'd look up and you wouldn't have any referral point to the mountain. You just see open space. Another one is you go to a tall building and you lie on your back on the ceiling, on the roof of the building. And so you don't see any physical form. You can't see the building that you're resting on, and you have open space in the sky. These are traditional ways of trying to sort of talk about open space of the sky. I have one that I really enjoy. Okay, I'd say most of us have flown in jets. Okay, so we've been at 32,000 feet or 34,000 feet, flying from Zurich to Paris or something like that. Okay. So just allow your imagination to say, okay, I'm in the window seat. I can be first class. Why not? So I'm in window class, first class. I'm sitting in my seat, and I'm beside the window. And I look out the window, okay, and it's a clear sky, no clouds, just a clear space of sky. Okay, so you're looking out the window, and then let the plane in your body keep going, and let your mind say, in that open space of the sky. Again, you have to go, let your imagination work a little bit. I'm in the plane, I got a window seat, I look out the window, I see the spaciousness of the sky, I'm at 30,000 feet. Plane and body keep going. I stay in that open space of the sky. Okay, so if you can do that, then actually now Lama Yeshe, he talked about this, but he didn't use that example. But he then said, what you're viewing as open space of the sky. Now this is the words of Lama Yeshe. He said, rather than looking at open space of the sky, so it's like I'm still a state of consciousness looking at open space of the sky. But then try to bring the two together, like make the distance between I subjectively looking at objectively becomes closer and closer and becomes one. I am open space of the sky. Sort of like try to establish a non-dual experience of consciousness. So in this verse, when like looking at the middle of the sky and not seeing anything, in the same way, when the mind looks at the mind, thoughts stop and you attain the unsurpassed waking. Now, in reality, even great meditators say your objective in meditation is not to stop thinking. That's almost impossible. But the thing is to not exaggerate or over-validate thoughts that are arising. So again, right, straight out of the FPMT, or was it the 14 steps of the graduated path of enlightenment. I forget the name of the particular text, but anyway, one of them, it says is that I am like the open space of the sky, and my thoughts are like the clouds moving through it. But I am the sky, and the sky doesn't get affected by white clouds or black clouds or thunder clouds or drops of rain or a bird flying through it. I rest in the peacefulness of being the open space of the sky, and whatever thoughts arise, they're just like the clouds. They come and they go. A bird, a butterfly, whatever going through it. I rest in the open space of the sky, non-obstructive. Okay, so there's 3 or 4 examples we just went through of, again, trying to wake up a little bit of ultimate perspective on the nature of reality. Remember, we're very familiar with relative perspective, all the detailed phenomena that arise. I mean, you're looking at your computer screen, maybe you're looking at some of the other people attending this class, you identify them, maybe you know them, maybe you don't, but you make some idea about them, that like that's a younger person, that's an older person, that's a skinny person, that's a fat person, all of those, that's all just relative. Well, you have the objects, and then you're making these relative assertions about them and stuff like that. Okay, so it's all changing. It's got a continuity of causes and circumstances, your mental disposition and a variety of other things, maybe culture or whatever. It's all interdependent, because otherwise you couldn't see it. If it wasn't open to being viewed, you couldn't see it, so it's interdependent. Okay, so it's good to be very clear. You don't mix ultimate perspective with relative perspective. If you understand ultimate or relative perspective properly, you automatically have ultimate perspective, but it's not a something. again, I mean, perfection of wisdom. Form here is only emptiness. Emptiness is only form. Form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness is no other than form. Feeling, thought, and choice, consciousness itself are the same as this. All dharmas here are empty. All of the primal void. Okay, so the point is that if you understand, well, Nagarjuna, if you understand the relative, you understand the void. If you understand the void, you understand the relative. So, in regards to this, we're trying to get a good ultimate perspective. Everything is empty, open like the space of the sky. And then when we come back to a relative perspective, it is like an illusion, like the image of in a mirror or something like that. We don't exaggerate it. So we end up with greater flexibility. And then finally, you end up with, at the same moment, you can see phenomena arising, but you understand the emptiness of existence. And only a fully enlightened Buddha can do that, even bodhisattvas. And actually, let's come back to another example of Lama Thupten Yeshe. He gave the greatest example of understanding reality. He said, like, I wear glasses. He said, when you don't have much understanding of things, it's like the thickness of the glass is really thick. Okay, like, have you ever seen somebody who's got really bad eyesight and they have these two Coke bottle bottom sort of lenses, like really thick glass on those things? Okay, he says that's like not having much wisdom. As you start to understand reality, then it's like the glasses get thinner and thinner. This is Lama Yeshe's commentary, yeah. So he said they get thinner and thinner. So like finally, when like you're a 10th level bodhisattva or something like that, the glass in your lenses is really thin. So you're almost seeing perfectly reality, but it's still through a lens of your understanding. So you could say it's still intellectually conceptualized. He says, when you finally gain a direct perception, the glasses got lifted up and you have a direct perception with no filtering in front of you, no lens in front of you. So that's the example. So what we're trying to accomplish with Mahamudra is we get an ultimate perspective with good understanding, and then we bring it back to a relative perspective, and we soften our experience of the relative perspective. So we've had two examples here. Okay, in space, what is resting on what? In one's mind, Mahamudra, there is nothing to be shown. Rest, relaxed in a natural state without attempting to alter anything. That's actually Dzogchen, really. It's called the natural mind. Not that we need to go to Dzogchen, but the thing is, it's got some very good meditations about don't exaggerate, just rest in a state of consciousness. Anyway, then the second one, that is like looking in the middle of the sky and not seeing anything. Okay, so to help you have some sense of that, then I say, look at your computer screen or your television or whatever you're looking at. Bring your attention back 30, 40 centimeters. Okay. And that's clear light. It's clear because, there's no color between you and that object that you're looking at. It's clear. It's light because you can see the object on the other side, so to speak. And so that's what you want to say is your mind is in that experience. Open like the space of the sky. Or you can again use another idea which helps you move in the right direction, is the planet Earth or space doesn't get out of the way of planet Earth. Space is non-obstruction. So again, if you just touch the words correctly, then you can sort of like, oh, okay, then you rest in that state. So that comes back to the verse of just rest relaxed in the natural state without attempting to alter anything. Or in this one, when your mind looks at mind, thought stops again. So I mentioned don't overemphasize that you don't think, but just maybe you can start to see like I am the space of the sky and the clouds going through it. Well, they don't affect sky. If a big thunderhead goes through sky, afterwards the sky's not damaged. Or a huge bolt of lightning of thousands of kilowatts of electricity doesn't change the sky. The sky is just sky. It's just there. It doesn't get affected. After the bolt of lightning, sky is still there. It didn't end up being damaged or something. That's our mind. Okay. Yeah, well, I'll do one more example because we've got 1 hour we do this class for. For example, is like looking in, oh, I'm sorry. For example, just as the vapor that arises from the earth becomes cloud and dissolves into the expanse of space, not going anywhere else and yet not continuing to abide anywhere, in the same way, the agitation of thoughts that arise from the mind and within the mind is calmed the instant you see the mind's nature. Okay, so that's again coming back to that. Okay, so let's look at the example. So just as if you took the ocean and it's hot, then it comes up, the vapor comes off it, the water starts to get evaporated. Okay, it comes up and turns it into a cloud. And then due to circumstances, it gets dissipated and it goes back to this sort of, I don't know, back into the molecules, whatever point is. So when you how do you say, you can't establish water at a fixed point. Water can be, we'll say, so we're using water, I mean, it's moisture, I guess, whatever, because it's water, it becomes vapor or it evaporates, becomes a cloud, then it gets dissipated and it evaporates again, it comes back and it's back in water. So it's like you can't isolate any one point of it. So not going anywhere and yet not continuing to abide anywhere. So it's just like it's in process. So I guess it's the English word you could say, like the process. That's again like touching the that all phenomena are interdependent. So well, there's Nagarjuna's commentary, which is called The Nature of Walking, or Firewood and Fire. Where does the firewood stop and the fire start? Is fire in the firewood? No, because in like, how does it come out? Is fire separate than the firewood? No, because it wouldn't happen. Those are two texts. I mean, the one I didn't send them, but those are again they're moving you towards trying to have a Mahamudra state of consciousness. Don't exaggerate phenomena. Don't independent or isolate them. Everything is functioning. So the example is just as there's a pool of water, it gets evaporated, it turns into a cloud, then the cloud turns into rain, and it comes down and it turns back into water. Like that. So there's it not going anywhere else nor not continuing to abide. Again, some of the examples are a lot easier. That one's a little harder to sort of grasp, but the point is certainly the first one, is what in space, what's resting on what. The second one being open like the space of the sky, and then so the third one is just there's a continuity, but you can't isolate any one part of it and say that is still abiding or that is not abiding. Okay, so I think that takes us to literally 1 hour. I started, I think, at 5 minutes after thing. So I could open it up to questions just for the fun of it, okay? So if you wanted to do some questions or something like that. But I'm going to review what we've covered. That Mahamudra has a foundation of wisdom understanding. Wisdom understandings keep you cool or calm, keep you in an equipoise. So things are always changing. Okay, I don't get so upset so easily. If something's happening, it's got a continuity of causes and circumstances. Okay, so it's not like, why me? Okay, but the other side of that is, hey, I can create new causes and circumstances. So again, I stay calm. Again, I'm in a universal ocean of interdependence. Universal, it's not that it's just partial. Every cell of my body is interdependent with the atmosphere. I'm immersed and penetrated by the atmosphere. My emotional life, my intellectual life, all those are again interdependent. Wow. You could say I'm open. Okay. Then I'm a bodhisattva, may I be of benefit. Say the effect of that understanding. Because why? Because it's all empty of self-existence. But then we have to say relative perspective is the understanding of things always changing, continuity of causes and circumstances, interdependence. And then when you shift over to the empty of self-existence, that's the nature, that's an ultimate perspective. And you're only looking at the nature, no relative phenomena will arise because all the relative phenomena are equally empty of self-existence, interdependent, etc., etc. Okay. So that's just the foundation for a Mahamudra state of consciousness. And then we used then the examples of, then we did the 3 verses of Lama Chopa, that may I have the space like equipoise, okay, verse 1. May I see everything like an illusion so I don't exaggerate them, 2. And both samsara and nirvana, all phenomena, there's not one atom of independent self-existence. And so the relative is not contradictory to ultimate, the ultimate is not contradictory to relative. Okay. So that's where we got to. Hope you enjoyed a little bit.
Ask questions, you can raise your hand or just ask away.
Sure.
Any question?
Just unmute yourself if you want to ask a question, or type it in the chat if you like. Oh, there's chats.
Yeah.
There's 4 chats. Okay, we seek your blessings to complete the perfection of wisdom through the space like yoga. Oh yeah, someone just posted them. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, there's the Ganges Mahamudra. Somebody posted that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just posted the text, and also I got cut off because we have a power cut in the whole area where I live, so I didn't hear all of what you were saying. So, but back now, I have a question.
Yep.
Learning from Lama Yeshe saying the best meditation is not meditating, not thinking, but how can you use discrimination and saying this is what I've learned, but letting go of those conceptual thoughts? Then I end up spacing out and just being like a vegetable. So how do you figure out finding that right position, thinking, not thinking?
Okay, now I haven't had a chance to talk to some of the geshis and things like that. Because I'm in Mexico. I actually don't live in Mexico City. I live north of Mexico City, but there's no Tibetans here. But according to something I read, but I haven't been able to follow it up, and that's where I like to talk, is Tsongkhapa used to say that when you entered the path of seeing, or path of studying, where you actually perceive directly the nature of reality, that you go unconscious, and then when you come out of it, then you appreciate that what you've experienced, but because it had to be a non-conceptual experience. This is Tsongkhapa's original presentation of the voidness. Later, it said that he actually studied with some Nyingmapas, and he started to shift off of that and to say, no, there is a conscious experience of the nature of reality. And so therefore it's not it's not conceptual, but it is an experience. So again, I haven't been able to clarify that. Maybe some of you in Switzerland, you can drop down to Lama Tsongkhapa Institute and ask some of the Geshis there about that. It happened in the latter part of Tsongkhapa's life, that particular thing. Now, having said that, what you're doing is you're I would tend to think you're negating the steps that you take to arrive at an experience by saying, "Oh, I can't be thinking." It's like when you look at a fire, you don't need to think, "Oh, this is hot. This will burn me. This is a fire. It's made with wood and blah blah blah." You just know it's hot. It's going to burn. It's a state of knowing. It doesn't need to be conceptualized. It's just, I know that this is hot. So if you use that as a bit of an example, you might be able to sort of then say, okay, I don't have to think about things are always changing. I just sort of try to have an experience of it. Or if something's arising, I know that there's causes and circumstances. So you don't intellectualize it, but you just know that. Again, I mean, I don't know, that's the best I can do for you, is that don't think that there's no thought. Like I said, silly better words there, but the thing is that the foundation of a wisdom consciousness is an understanding. It doesn't need to be conceptualized, but it is a state of knowing. Try that.
Thank you. Other questions? Nadja raised her hand.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jhampa, for the teachings. I think it's probably following up on that. I personally don't have a lot of experience with Mahamudra, so would you, how would you practice this? Would you practice this within meditation, or as you're saying, would you practice this sort of like in your daily life whilst you go about your day? What would you recommend?
Both.
Both.
Yeah. Why? Okay. Why? Okay. Like for me, I love the idea that I'm immersed and penetrated by the atmosphere because it's so immediate. Like, I mean, and then actually watching the wind blow the trees, the wind's invisible, but you're watching this tree go boom, 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 boom like that. And you're like, wow, and so those help me appreciate I'm immersed in an ocean of interdependence. So on a daily basis, having that sort of like appreciation, or another one is it sound. I mean, this is really unbelievable to think about. Like, I all I'm doing is causing vibrations in my larynx and blah blah blah, and it's coming out of my mouth in a sort of group of syllables and consonants and whatever, and things, and you're understanding it on the other side. And then let alone that, it's going through, fiber optics to Switzerland, the thing. But let's come back to actually that's too far. But just sitting in a room and hearing sound is vibrations of the atmosphere around you. I am immersed and penetrated in an ocean of interdependence. So there's where your daily activity can be really a reflection and an appreciation of I'm immersed in interdependence, okay, which then is everything's changing. If something's happening, it's got causes and circumstances. You didn't negate those two, but you expanded it to being I'm immersed in an ocean of interdependence, okay? So that's a wisdom state of consciousness. And then add to that, I'm a bodhisattva. May I be a benefit? So it's not just sort of like, may everything just cease. No, in this interdependence, may I be like a stick of incense that makes the room more fragrant, like that. So that's regular day, and that's still all interdependence. It's bodhicitta and sunyata together at the same moment. But when you're in your meditation, that's when, like, so you maybe early in the morning when it's nice and quiet, or whenever you want to meditate, you sit down and then you use the examples of Mahamudra, because this is Tilopa trying to wake up an experience in Naropa. And so he said, like, in space, what is resting on what? So you need to do a little bit of reflections on it, but maybe you come to this, oh, and then you try to rest in that. And as he says, the natural state of the mind, okay? Or so we had the three examples. So I would say both, okay? Relatively, I'm in a universal ocean of interdependence. May I be a benefit? Ultimately, I'm now touching the nature of reality, and I want to just rest in that nature of reality. And it's a more subtle mindset. And then the analogy, now this is the important word, the analogy of resting in the ultimate nature of reality is open like the space of the sky. So I think the example we had was when you're in a jet, that your body in the jet keep going. You are at 30,000 feet, okay, and you rest in that. So that can be your meditation, that I rest in this sense of openness like the space of the sky. And that actually answers the first question that was asked here, saying, like, how do you meditate? Well, you use the analogies to try to build up an experience of consciousness, so you have a state of knowing, a state of understanding.
Thank you.
So we're at 110. We should call it quits. I have actually things to do with my wife.
Yes.
I'm interdependent with life around me, and I need to wash the dishes.
And I want to thank you, Jhampa, to join in this Laksham Center with people coming from Switzerland and all around the world. And thank you for giving us some tools and knowledge and wisdom about Mahamudra. Looking forward to seeing you next Thursday for the second part. And thank you everybody for joining in, and have a lovely evening. And
Okay, let's dedicate. Gyawadi Duda Lama Sange dru gyurne trowa chikyang malupa geki sala goparsho Changshu Sensha Rinpoche Mage Panange Gershin Yewa Me Paterwa Yang Kone Kondu Pelwar Sho